morning and welcome to another episode of Read Me Something You Love. I'm sitting here in a lovely quiet sitting room, quite early in the morning, just past 8 o'clock in the morning, and sitting with ESPE BROWN, who is dressed in his full Zen get-up. I feel like I've come for my Zen morning check-in with Edward. Edward, thank you very much for agreeing to read me something you love.
You're welcome.
So Edward's going to read. Are you going to read or are you going to recite?
I'm going to recite, yes.
Even better.
The poem is by Rumi, and it's translated by Koan, who's devoted many years of his life now to translating Rumi. And Koan calls it story water. A story is like water that you heat for your bath. It takes messages from the fire to your skin. It lets them meet, and it cleans you. Very few of us can sit down directly in the fire like a salamander or Abraham. We need intermediaries. A feeling of fullness comes. Usually it takes some bread to bring it. Beauty surrounds us. Usually we need to walk in a garden to know it. The body itself is a screen to shield and partially reveal the light that's blazing inside your presence. Stories, water, the body, all the things we do are mediums that hide and show what's hidden. Study these and enjoy this being washed with a secret you sometimes know and then don't.
Thank you. Do you think we could have it again? Because
Yes.
I often find that it's actually only the second time that I really listen. The
Of
first
course.
time I'm sort of hearing kind of almost the music and just being with you reciting or reading it. The second time I actually stop listening.
We'll see how it goes. A story is like water that you heat for your bath. It takes messages from the fire to your skin. It lets them meet, and it cleans you. Very few of us can sit down directly in the fire like a salamander or Abraham. We need intermediaries. A feeling of fullness comes, and usually we need some bread to bring it. Beauty surrounds us, but usually we need to walk in a garden to know it. The body itself is a screen to shield and partially reveal the light that's blazing inside your presence. Stories, water, the body, all the things we do are mediums that hide and show what's hidden. Study these and enjoy this being washed with a secret we sometimes know and then don't.
Thank you. Now I noticed that the second time you read it, you did a stretch at the end of the poem.
You didn't catch that on your on your audio?
No, I think that's important, just because it was quite nice when you kind of said the body, and then your body started to
stretch
to
a
respond.
bit. Yes, that was nice.
What was your body Was your body doing its own thing there, do you think?
That's a secret. And maybe we'll know and maybe we won't. I'm certainly a great believer in the wisdom, intelligence, intuition of the body, and it's Western culture has certainly gotten off in thinking that, like I was at Christ Church College on Monday, and we walked down through the dining room, and the tables are all set with the plates and silverware and the napkins, and then up on the walls, all these portraits. Queen Elizabeth was the only woman I saw. And of course, Queen Elizabeth is famous for having said that she only looked like a woman, that she was more of a man than most men. And I forget how she said it, it's very poetic, famous speech. So there we are, bastion of masculinity, rationality, people with their arms out and their chests forward, and they are going to rule the world, and they are capable of this because they are so distinguished and bright and smart and because that's their place after all, to run things, and to tell everything else how it needs to behave, to provide for me what I am deserving of. So, strange business from my point of view, but this is our Western world, and you see it there.
And you see it, you mean you see it in their bodies?
You see it in their bodies.
Yeah.
They're in charge.
Yeah.
We are in charge. And the rest of you will do our bidding, so that we can remain in charge, and we can have what we need in our life, you're not going to be in touch with the sacred feminine, or even the sacred. It's a sacredness that's devoid of soul. It's just spirit that is above, and gives out, and is more in tune with the old kind of archetype of God the Father who punishes misbehaviors, as opposed to God the Father who's in touch with Mother Earth, etc., and is in a more realistic or sensitive connection with the feminine, with plants, animals, with intuition, with knowing through the body.
Which is also what we have in this poem, don't we? I mean, we don't have that. We don't have God in this poem. God is not mentioned. We don't. We have a story like water. The line that really speaks to me from the first sort of stanza of the poem is this: it takes messages from the fire to your skin. And it's particularly that word message. I was sort of thinking last night, what is the message that fire wants to give to my skin? It doesn't take heat, it takes messages from the fire to your skin.
Yeah. Well, so what takes messages in the poem from fire to the skin is water. And again, that's classically, water is emotions. And water is dreams, reflections. Jung wrote his book, Dreams, Reflections. So it's about water. Mm-hmm. And water, water is this medium that carries things, and it not only is carrying, like in the body, the water is in the body, water is blood, digestive fluids, lymph, sexual secretions, and so forth. So and then there, and actually 98% or something of the body is water.
Mm.
So it's mostly water. We actually are this fluid medium.
Mm-hmm.
And so the sensibility is the messages from the fire, which is fire is associated with more with mind or spirit from source,
Mm-hmm.
from the infinite. Fire to the skin, the earth, the body, what is solid. So then there's connection.
Mm. It feels very personal, though, as well. I mean, you are speaking in a sort of talking about these sort of theories and ideas, and yet it's a very personal thing as well. And I mean, you've memorized this poem, so I'm imagining it has a real personal resonance.
Well,
for
I've
you.
memorized a number of poems.
But they must speak to you. It must speak to you personally in some way.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I'm a great believer in memorizing poems, and when you memorize the poem, you have it in your body.
Mm.
And again, that's different than our more typical cultural point of view, that there's some message center or guidance command post in the head which gives out the proper directives to the body.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly when people read things, then it's from one head to another head, and I want my poem to be from my body to your body, my body to other bodies, because it's always been important to me to be embodied and not be just in my head.
Mm.
I found that from a rather young age that living in my head, often you will experience your mind as like a bad neighborhood, and you don't want to go there alone.
Mm.
And in a somewhat similar way, the Zen teachers used to say, Zen is to settle the self on the self. And then they'd point to their head, the self here in the head, on the self here in the abdomen. So when the mind, so to speak, or self is settled in the abdomen, then you have this body wisdom, body intelligence, body energy of your body, the resourcefulness. In your body, there's resourcefulness, there's energy, resources, determination, and all the more so when you're allowing that to inform you rather than you're going to tell it what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are in charge here.
Mm.
You like to think you are. Anyway, excuse me for going on. See how abstract that gets?
Well, it does strike me. It's kind of ironic in a way that this poem is very much about. It is about sort of being embodied and about fire and about all these things we can touch, and yet, of course, our compulsion is to go quite highfalutin and abstract, to go away continuously from the body. You know, I mean, a story is like water you heat for your bath. It takes messages from the fire to your skin. I still come back to this. What is that message that the fire wants to communicate to me? Does it want to communicate to me?
Well,
does it not give? Maybe it doesn't give a damn about. Maybe it's Rumi thinks that fire wants a message to give to me.
Well, that's also then reflected in the line. The body itself is a screen to shield and partially reveal the light that's blazing inside your presence.
Mm.
So there's the fire inside. The water is taking messages from the fire outside and letting you know that there's a fire inside as well.
Yeah.
So,
what is that fire?
Yes, exactly. And it's the light that's blazing inside your presence. There's a light blazing inside your presence, and we don't...
Why is it blazing?
We don't often... It's a fire. Of course it blazes.
It blazes because it can.
So now and again we may have that kind of experience, the light that's blazing inside your presence. that, we're not just stuff, dumb stuff, but there's actually, inside our presence, there's this spark or fire of what is divine and what is sacred, what is mysterious, ultimately mysterious, which can't be explained or described, but we can kind of have a poem about it.
Which is that last line, isn't it? That study these and enjoy this being washed with a secret we sometimes know and then not. That sense of,
so that's rather,
we're in touch with it, and then suddenly we're just idiots again.
Yeah, yes, we are. So sometimes we have a sense of the fire blazing inside our presence. We have more the sense of soul connection, and sometimes we're lost here in a world that's not of our making, and that doesn't feel like home, and a body that feels like it's betraying us and so forth, and we wonder what we did wrong and so forth. So we can certainly lose our sense of the sacred, or our spirit.
And there's also that, I suppose, that would being lost also kind of being lost in that bad neighborhood, the bad neighborhood of the mind gone.
That's one of the
loopy
possibilities. Yes, lost in that bad neighborhood.
What is in that bad neighborhood? I mean, what's so bad about it? Surely it's just other beings walking around with fire blazing within them.
Yes, but it's not. But one is not aware of any of that. So that bad neighborhood is also called the dark night of the soul, or the dark night of the spirit, where there's absolutely, which is others also described as, here the everyday world is horizontal. Everyday affairs are out in this three-dimensional, two-dimensional at least plane. There's 10 directions actually, so, or 8 directions, Anyway, so there's this horizontal, then there's a vertical world. And sometimes you can get lost be down in the lower vertical. Everybody agrees about the upper vertical. Oh, heaven, spirits, blah, blah, blah. The lower vertical, some people see that as hell and a place to be avoided. That's a bad neighborhood, the lower vertical. And in the lower vertical, you suspect that, you start to believe that you will never, ever see the light again.
Yeah, I know that feeling well.
and that any experience of that you've had in the past was probably a delusion and a mistake, and you are so lost and despairing that you would never again possibly deserve to have that kind of experience again, etc., etc. So that's called the lower vertical, or for today. So the world beneath our horizontal world, and some people call that the underworld. And then sometimes we journey through the underworld. And when you're journeying through the underworld, you don't have this light, you don't have this secret. At some point you pop up to the surface, but what goes on in the underworld, you're not in charge of it. You are not in charge. Consciousness, our usual consciousness, is not in charge. But you're undergoing a kind of transformation when you're in that underworld, and then at some point you pop up to the surface and you've been transformed. But you're not in charge of doing that work that takes place there, because otherwise you wouldn't be in the lower vertical, and you can't know what needs to be done with your conscious mind.
I mean, is the lower vertical in some way? Because another line that really sort of speaks to me, thrills me, interests me, is this: very few of us can sit down directly in the fire.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if that lower vertical is us being kind of almost dragged in some way directly down in the fire, and we can't sit in it. We don't like sitting in it.
Yeah. So a little bit of that feeling. Certainly we're dragged down.
Yeah.
We get dragged down, and Rilke has a poem about, these hands reaching up at the ground and grabbing your ankles and pulling you down, and most of us don't want to go down there, and we consider that a kind of defeat to go down.
Mm-hmm.
So we resist it as much as possible, and then we take medications and various things so I can be up, and I don't have to go down, because it's so unacceptable, even among one's friends, that you would be down.
Mm-hmm.
But it's quite so it's quite a journey.
How do you think Rumi? Do you think Rumi might be suggesting that perhaps the story water can be of some assistance to us when we are down there? I mean, or how might the story water be of some assistance to us when we are in that place? I suppose I'm also thinking about the various stories that you use. You use a lot of stories in your teaching, and I'm thinking of my experience of listening to teachers like yourself when I've been feeling actually very, very low, and how often the stories, maybe particularly the stories that acknowledge that you are less than perfect, and that there are other people out there who are less than perfect and also struggling.
Right.
Have been really helpful for me. So I think that's how it's helpful for me.
Yeah. Well, in certain ways, nothing helps. In some sense, nothing helps.
Soothing, perhaps. Soothing.
Yeah. So, what finally comes to mind here is once when we were in the middle of a meditation intensive, going over several days with Suzuki Roshi, one morning in the middle of meditation, he said, "Don't move, just die. Nothing will help you now, because this is your last moment. Not even enlightenment will help you, because you have no more moments." So that's kind of helpful. It's a radical, radically being with exactly this moment, and not anticipating, looking for, wishing for some other moment, that in some other place, some other time, some other body, some other, and couldn't I be there, and why am I stuck here? And and there is something about fire about that.
But it's also a story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't move because you have got no more moments. Or maybe it's a new story. I mean, maybe that's the problem. We get trapped in old stories, but that's a new story.
Yes, that's a new story that you could, that actually, that not moving, and he said, just die. And that's a kind of story too. And most people don't want to go to that story. So we're shifting stories from the brighter, better future to being rather determinedly in this moment. But that is a kind of fire. That's a kind of it's like burning up all the other moments. And what he also said is, take care of your exhalation. Mostly you worry at the end of the exhalation, am I going to inhale? So then you inhale kind of quickly. And you're more interested in inhale than the exhale. But actually, at the end of the exhalation, when you exhale mindfully, so to speak, and fully, then there's a kind of pause. And it's completely still. And then inhalation comes. So the inhalation takes care of itself. And what we usually don't take care of is that complete disappearing into with the exhalation.
In which you could die, in which you do, there is that, it's a limbo moment, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And then you
And the
breathe
people-
and you're alive again.
And the people I've been with, when they die at the end of the exhalation. But that kind of, again, in a certain sense, that kind of, that's a kind of fire. But it's also, there's many things there. There's stories, water, the body, all the things we do are mediums that hide and show what's hidden. Hide and show. So sometimes things are being revealed and sometimes they're not. And that's very reassuring. That actually in the course of our life there's things being hidden, things being revealed. There's inhalation, there's exhalation, there's light and there's dark, there's up and there's down. And we don't have to think that like the great masters of England, we are on top of it all the time. There's a funny thing that goes on there with that. And frankly, you see, I was never able, I would just as soon have done that. What the heck? Why not rule and master? And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it for over many years. I tried. And finally, after 19 years of meditation, I was wondering what to do when I sat there. After 19 years, I'm leading the practice period intensive at Tassajara, and I think sit down for morning meditation. I wonder, well, what do I do today? And I thought, and do I focus on? Do I concentrate? Do I calm my mind? Do I empty my thoughts? Blah 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 blah. And then this thought came to me: why don't I just touch what's inside with some warmth and kindness? And the tears started pouring down my face. I'd never done that. I'd been busy, taking charge, doing the right thing, doing what you're supposed to do. But what's inside? And what was inside was some tears, and the tears were pouring down. Just the thought, I didn't even have to do it. I didn't even have to, why don't I? I was already doing that then. And then a little voice said, it's about time.
And I'm struck that the tears, the tears is...
There's some more water, isn't there?
Well, we come back to the water, don't we? And the sense of cleaning, because I did wonder about...
Tears are cleansing, yes.
Well, tears are cleansing. Tears can be cleansing. Tears can be all sorts of things, but cleaning was... I sort of thought, well, do I want a story to clean me? But that story does.
Yeah.
That story cleans.
Yeah. Stories, water, the body, all the things we do are mediums that hide and show what's hidden. Study these and enjoy this being washed with a secret you sometimes know and then don't. So, by the way, then a few weeks later I saw Katagiri Roshi, who was the interim abbot of the Zen Center, and I said, so, Roshi, I'm in meditation now. I'm focusing just on just touching what's inside. Is that okay? Is that Zen? Is there something else I should be doing that's more a better Zen practice? And he said, he paused, and he used to sit up very straight in this interview and meditate, in Doksan we call it. And he said, Ed, for 20 years I tried to do the Zazen of Zen Master Dogen before I realized there was no such thing.
So why do we try so hard, though? Why do we put ourselves through those paces?
It's all kind of through confusion, basically, and beauty surrounds us, but usually you need to walk in a garden to know it. The feeling of fullness comes. Usually it takes some bread to bring it. So we get confused, and I think it's largely the confusion between love and approval. So if you can have recognizable, certifiable experiences, This is like, then you get approval. And then you've come to associate approval with love. But what you really want is the love and not the approval. So we get confused. So this is where, like I said it the other day at the retreat, if I'm doing a cooking class and I say, let's taste this, and people say, what should we be tasting? Can't you just have your experience? So a lot of the times, rather than just having my experience, what I am authentically experiencing, and I know for myself, because it's my experience. I'm not saying it's the right one, I'm saying it's mine, and I had it.
But I think there is a doing in the experience, because those lines struck me as well, the ones you mentioned about a feeling of fullness comes, but usually we need some bread to bring it. Beauty surrounds us, but we need to walk in the garden to know it. So for me, it was that sense of beauty's there, fullness there, satiation, satisfaction is always available, but we need to kind of do something to...
But usually we need to do something to elicit that.
Yeah.
So
we need to find a way of meeting that.
We need to find a way of meeting that. And the problem is that somehow people think that if they have enough of the right experiences, it's associated with it's actually kind of associated with what I call child thinking, or child talk. I should do that, but I don't want to, and I'm not going to. But I should. But it's also the sense as what a child thinks is, I trust you not to hurt me, and if you do, you meant to, and I must deserve it. But we're trying to shift to an adult's trust, which is I can trust my observations and experience and know how to respond to what I sense. But we get lost in things are going this way or that way, and oh no, what did I do? What did I do wrong? And the idea is that if I did everything right, I wouldn't get punished.
I suppose my thinking more was in the sense of doing there was more about, for me anyway, more about deciding what's really important for you and then doing it. So in other words, letting that fire kind of burn through you and fuel you rather than a kind of all over the place doing.
So this is
every day you get up and meditate. That is doing, isn't it? It is doing.
Yeah. So there's I didn't get to that part of the quote, what I was saying that Suzuki Roshi said that morning when he said, "Don't move, just die." Not even enlightenment will help because you have no more moments. So don't move, be true to yourself, and express yourself fully. So yes, the fire inside, and we each have a particular fire and then particular modes of expression. And then how do we share that fire with others? And that it's not a fire that rages and burns everything to a crisp, but it's a fire that is more like the sun helping, that plants can grow and etc. So it's a fire that, or like the fire that's the oven where the bread is baked. It's not a fire that's burning down the house, but it's a fire that's baking the bread. So all the things we do, stories water the body, all the things we do are mediums that hide and show what's hidden. We think that some moments are hiding and some moments are showing, but each moment has its hiding and its showing.
Absolutely. And I when I listen back to these podcasts that I do with people, I'm very much aware of that. I'm aware of hearing things again, because obviously I listen a number of times while I'm editing, and I'm aware of things that were hidden in our discussion suddenly blazing forth.
Yes.
And other things that I thought were there being hidden. It's a very curious thing that it's all this stuff going on, and we only sort of I myself only partially aware of half of it.
Well, this also brings up the fact that what is nice about having a poem in your body because then the poem goes on revealing things to you and hiding things, and so the poem is working in you, whether you're reciting the poem or not, because you know it. Can I tell you another poem to end?
Please do.
So this is a poem by William Stafford, who during the Second World War, he had grown up in Kansas, I believe, and he was, I think, Mennonite, his family, and during the Second World War, he was one of the few conscientious objectors in the United States, and he started writing poetry in the conscientious objector camp. But anyway, and that at one point, he had a practice of writing a poem each day. He'd get up early and start on his poem, and then he'd have to get the kids up and make breakfast and get them off to school, and he had a little shelf where he kept the poem during the day, and if he didn't get to it sooner at night, he'd finish it before going to bed. So he just thought it was a good practice to write a poem every day. And one day when he was being interviewed, they said, "Well, but Mr. Stafford, you can't be inspired every day. How do you write a poem every day? You can't be inspired like that day in and day out, can you?" And he said, "I lower my standards." So anyway, I believe this is one of those poems that he wrote in one day, and it's called Yes. It could happen any time. Earthquake, tornado, Armageddon. It could, Or sunshine, love, salvation. It could happen. There are no guarantees in this life. That's why we wake up and look out. But there are some bonuses, like morning, like right now, like noon, like evening. You want that one again? It could happen anytime. Earthquake, tornado, Armageddon. It could happen. Or sunshine, love, salvation. It could, That's why we wake up and look out. There are no guarantees in this life. But there are some bonuses. Like morning, like noon, like right now, like evening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.